the Holistic Diabetes Solutions Summit, and it is the first of its kind where we are bringing you experts from around the world to help you have a healing day in your life with your health and wellness. And what is exciting about today is that we have Brian Gangel with us, who, my goodness, is a producer of at least 9 to 18 events a year. And the background of relatedness includes herbalism, iridology, quantum. We're talking advanced kinesiology. Brian Gangel has his doctorate in humanitarian sciences. He is also a medicine practitioner. In addition to this, he's also received the Award of Excellence, and which is really cool about this, it's for health education with the World Organization of Natural Medicine, an organization I'm very familiar with there, Brian. The co-director of Premier Research Labs in Canada, and it does go on and on. I want to welcome you, Brian, because this is going to change people's lives. This interview is going to change people's lives today. Those people who have pre-diabetes, those people who are at risk, and those who are actually diagnosed and who live with diabetes, whether it's type 1, 2, 3, and yes, there are multiple types. So welcome, Brian, and thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
All the colleagues that we mutually know, and just speaking with you in the last while, I've learned so much about your background. And we were just talking about that it's not one thing that is the answer to anything, but rather a collective of understanding drivers behind our challenges and our health issues and what medicine labels as diseases. Can you talk to us about that a little more?
Absolutely, for sure. I believe that one of the things that we're trying to do is we want to get to the root of the root causes. I think that most of the disorders and the diseases out there are actually quite simple to actually solve. You don't have to have a Herculean effort here to move the body in the right direction. When it comes to the modalities, I believe that each modality has a certain percentage of the highest efficacy. So whether it's iridology, kinesiology, muscle testing, whether it's body comp, heart rate variability, live blood cell analysis, hormone testing, blood tests, heavy metal tests, urine analysis, no matter what it is, you take the top 10% of that modality that has the highest accuracy and you use that as part of your armamentarium, your chemistry, if you will, or your makeup of what you do when a patient, client, or customer presents. If you take enough of them together, then you get this amazing, accurate picture of what's going on with the person who's presenting in front of you. Then you apply the root of the root causes. And this is something that was developed by my mentors, which is the 12 drivers behind all disorder and disease. And then if we figure out what root causes are in play in your specific case, then the job becomes very simplified. Pull the plug on those drivers that's driving the problem, fueling the issue, and the body returns to an ideal state of health. So when it comes to diabetes, when it comes to pancreas, blood sugar issues, the solutions are a lot easier than you think. And yes, medical can be something that you turn to, but using traditional, natural, alternative methods is also part of the equation. We need to have that in place as part of the prevention side of the equation.
Yes.
Before you have to turn to the medical model.
Well, that's the whole thing. And, out of all the conditions that there are ever in the world, diabetes is the one that as individuals who take responsibility that we have the most control over, because it's all the choices of how we're fueling our system and how we're moving our bodies and the balance of that internal endocrine system. Is that not correct?
It's true. It's definitely true.
Yeah, so this out of all gives us the most choices. I don't think the mindset of our listeners, and I know that just coming from the background that I came back from when I was first diagnosed with diabetes, I was given the same grim prognosis as my grandmother and saw the struggles that she went through, but there was nothing available for people back in my time, which was 25, 30 years ago. And now it's wonderful because we're making such great progress. And we're able to help people look at prevention. And like you said, with this being a pandemic and more people on the rise, how do we prevent this? So can you talk about prevention?
Well, on the prevention side, that's a tricky question. It's a multi-pronged approach. I always refer people back to an article which you can find on the internet quite easily. And it's not the one where Elvis is having a concert at Maple Leaf Gardens this weekend, because I didn't buy tickets for that one. But this is a great article written by medical doctor Walter B. Guy, written in 1930, on hydrochloric acid therapy and its role in reversing degenerative diseases. Now, this article is about 41 pages long, and I got to tell you, if you take your time and read it, it will change your life.
Okay.
See, we can do diet, and there are many diets. There's the green diet, the rainbow diet. There's all kinds of diets which remove the sugar and the starches from the diet, and that's a great foundation. But most people are resistant to changing the F word, which is food. They want to, the biggest word is the E word, exercise, but I have more issues with the F word, which is food. Right. So the first thing is if you're going to work with anybody who's got pancreas, blood sugar, diabetic issues, obviously the first thing is to put them on a green diet, dark green juices, and you're going to eliminate the sugars and educate them about glucose that's healthy and glucose that's maybe not so healthy. That's foundational. That goes without saying. But the next is some of the 3 herbs which have been used all around the world, and 1 spice. And so the 1 spice is cinnamon. Everybody knows about cinnamon and its role in blood sugar. But the other 3 they may not know too much about. One called nopal cactus. Nopal cactus, known as the Apunja cactus, actually has a claim with Health Canada for helping to support blood sugar. And this is a wonderful food. And I love it when food can be thy medicine, like Hippocrates says. Absolutely. So you can incorporate this into your smoothies and your shakes, and it's wonderful for blood sugar support. Another great guy is called gymnema. Now, this herb, this leaf, is amazing. Its nickname is actually the sugar destroyer. So if you put your mouth with some sweets in it, it's like some ding-dongs, ho-hos, and wagon wheels, and you fill your mouth up with sugar, and then you put a couple of leaves of the gymnema, the sweetness actually disappears instantly. So in your body, drinking this as a tea or taking it as a supplement, which is a food concentrate, then this is a wonderful adjunct to your equation to helping to reduce the sugar in the body.
Would that be taken when you're eating then, not after you're eating?
You can take it either or. You can take it as a supplement while you're eating, consuming food, but you can also drink it as a tea, and you can also find it as leaves, and you can use it in different ways. So there's multiple uses, whether it's nopal cactus, whether you're using the pad of the cactus, whether you're using the powder that's sold in the health food stores. Yeah. You can use them in multiple ways. These are designed to get into the body's systems, get into the blood, get into the gangula, and help with blood sugar support.
Right.
The last one is found in the Caribbean islands and also in Southeast Asia. It's known as bitter melon. And the bitter melon fruit, you can incorporate it as a food. You can use it as a stew. You can also purchase it as a supplement. These are the 3, we call them the triad. This is the foundation, along with more cinnamon in the diet. But we haven't got to the root cause yet. We have to get to the root of the root cause. Why does this affect some people and not affect others?
Right.
One thing we want to look at is the root of the root causes. So the first thing is that we find there is an infection connection. Now, you have to understand that the medical uses the word infection. We, on the alternative world, we use the word immune specific. That is our side. So whenever I'm referring to immune specific, that equates to infection.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know.
When we have immune specific issues, we find that these bad boys, these critters, can migrate into the system, make their way to the pancreas, and start messing around, with you will, with the little isolates of Langerhans, the little insulin pumps in the pancreas. Yeah. And then we can find a whole cascading imbalance start to occur.
Right.
Now, these invaders come in 3 varieties, if you will. We have first nanobacteria, second virus, and third parasites. So if we look at it, nanobacteria, we can get that because of low hygiene. We live in a country of low gene, not hygiene. So we can get it from bad hygiene. We can also get it from bacteria in the food. A lot of the meat, fish, chicken, poultry that's sold, a lot of it is bacterially contaminated. And that's why they recommend to cook the food more. But when we cook the food, we can liberate the bugs. The next guy is virus. You know how virus gets in. Virus gets in and multiplies. It drills into the cell. It takes out the RNA and DNA material it needs to replicate itself, and then it docks on the outside of the cell. And when enough of them have docked, it destroys the cell, and they all spread to the neighboring cells. I don't know if you remember that Clorox hair commercial back in the 1950s and 60s. You tell two friends, and they tell two friends. Well, this guy's telling 10,000 friends at one time, and that's why he spreads so fast. So he can be a player in type 2 diabetes. The last guy's parasites, called the great mimic. And we can get all kinds of parasites like schistosomosis. We can get the Paragonus westphalia. We can get the liver flukes. We can get the Entamoeba histilica, the common amoebas. These guys can get into the gallbladder liver meridian. And I got to tell you, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump over to the pancreas. And then it can mess around with the machinery in the pancreas. Right. The big question, and we have lots of immune-specific ACEs to deal with these guys, whether it's the active fraction of garlic, known as allicin for the nanobacteria, whether it's the oleuropein, known as olive leaf, which neuters the organisms like virus, prevents it from replicating. And then, of course, for parasites, we have things like Holorina antidysenterica. We have all kinds of great ACEs to deal with those guys. But how did they get in? And why did they get in? This is the equation. This is the simplicity of it. And that's what I like Einstein said, make it as simple as possible, but no simpler. And if you read the article of what Walter B. Guy was saying, it's the lack of hydrochloric acid. So you know that stomach acid that you have in your stomach? Well, that's known as HCl, hydrochloric acid. And the Almighty put it there for a reason. Because if there was any parasites, virus, or bacteria in the food, it gets fried.
Yeah, it can't get through.
pH. That's right, a 1.5 to 3.5 pH, highly acidic Malu. It gets fried before it has carte blanche to the rest of the system.
Right.
So if you eat cooked food, you lose your digestive synthesis, you squander your HCl, hydrochloric acid levels in your gut. Right. Just by the simple fact of eating and aging, we actually lose 10% of our hydrochloric acid reserve on average every 10 years. So when you get into your 30s, 40s, we could be down to 60 or 70%.
Right.
If we're in our 60s and 70s, we could be at zero, and the bugs have carte blanche to the system.
Yeah.
So if you take a look at it from that point of view, start eating cooked food, you'll lose your HCl faster. So for instance, I'll give you an example. You're born, you have 90 million methyl groups per cell. These are energy pockets that are in the cell. Okay. Every time we eat cooked food, we lose somewhere around 1,800 of these methyl groups in the simple act of digesting up that food.
Right.
Now remember, we're aging, so we're losing these methyl groups faster and faster.
Right.
If I use some digestive supports, like some simple enzymes, some HCl as a digestive support, I would lose maybe 900 to 1,200 methyl groups. I could actually save almost 1/3 of my usable lifespan by using those enzymes and those reserves. Now, all of a sudden now, if I ate 3 cooked meals a day, which I did early on in my life, later I went to 0, and then I balanced out at 1 cooked meal a day. So if I averaged 3 cooked meals like the average person, then I would be losing 5,400 methyl groups a day, 2 million methyl groups a year. And so you know what happens when you get down to only 10 from 90.
Yeah.
The P53 gene gets activated, cell goes into apoptosis, which is its death roll, and then the cell dies. So your mission in life is to make sure you don't get from 90 million down to 10. But all of a sudden, here I am in my 50s or 60s, I'm down to 10, 15, 20% HCl, and now the bugs have carte blanche to the system. And if you read that article, you will be astonished at what you're going to learn and how simple it is to put the defensive posture back in place to prevent the bugs from getting in the first place. So as a practitioner, our first job in prevention is to making sure that the bugs don't have a chance to get in, and make sure you start using some betaine, hydrochloric acid, the simplest, most effective supplement ever created, available in every health food store in America and in Canada. And if you take a little bit of that, follow the directions properly, then this guy can be your protective agent. This can be your ace in the hole to preventing the bugs from getting in the first place. Once the bugs have got in, we have many aces that can resolve it. Once we've resolved that and we've changed the diet, brought these quadrinity, cinnamon, nopal cactus, apunja cactus, the bitter melon, and the gymnema into place, we can really get into a position to fight the good fight.
And, you know, when you talk about the enzymes, and for our audience, there may be people that are familiar with, yes, there are digestive enzymes that you can buy out there in stores, but some of the best digestive enzymes are in our raw foods.
That's correct. When the enzymes to digest the food are in the food. And when we cook the bejesus out of the food, we lose the enzymes. So if you're eating cooked food, you have to take enzymes. My first choice is to take a little slice of pineapple or a little piece of papaya with your food, and that's a wonderful natural enzyme. And we have many of those. But if you don't, for the convenience, you need to carry them in your pocket, you need to carry them in your purse, go and get your hands on some good full spectrum enzymes.
Yes.
I think it's one of the best things you take. It's taken towards the beginning of the meal, and you eat it so that it's in the milieu with the food. The HCl, the hydrochloric acid that contains supplementation, comes in after the food with a glass of water. And this not only prevents the food from rotting, but later on I'll tell you how you can use it to turn adversity into advantage.
Which is amazing. I love that. Adversity into advantage. Absolutely. Well, you know, it's when I was studying natural nutrition and looking at things and just coming from organic farming, it was always that we would have a piece of fruit. Now, it's not that we have pineapple here in Canada, but, you know, when we're looking at other forms of digestive enzymes, and we're looking at the raw foods, like looking at the raw foods with salads, looking at that with some fruit that's added for the natural fiber as well. Those are all things that are very easy for everyone to do, very easy. And now, and I think it's really great that you said look at a full spectrum digestive enzyme, because there are enzymes that are specific for protein, carbs, dairy, like they're specific. So I think one of the really great gifts that you've just shared too is get a full spectrum, high quality digestive enzyme from a health food store.
That's right. And there's lots of those available. But again, that's the beginning of the process. The first step is obviously identify what is the drivers in place. Is it the diet? Is it the habits of the diet? Is it digestion? Is it a lack of sleep and ability to rebuild the body? Are there invaders in place like parasites, viruses, or bacteria? Are we dealing with an EMF issue? Are we dealing with a chemotoxic issue? Yeah. So genes are very robust. When we did the Human Genome Project years ago, we identified that up to 30% of the genes we thought were junk genes. It turns out they're virus genes. And so epigenetics has taught us that the gene deck is very robust and can be influenced easily by chemical insult to the gene deck. So if we have a chemical insult like smoking, exposure to hydrocarbons, MSGs, the GMO issues, all of these things can be chemical insult to the gene deck. And we could have a virus expression, if you will, that could turn on a gene sequence that we don't want.
Right.
So we have to be cognizant of the chemotoxic burden to the body. Remember, back in the 40s and the 50s, we thought cigarettes were okay. We thought asbestos was okay. It's not what we're doing today. It's what are we doing today that we're going to find out tomorrow to be a bad thing. So we have to put on our thinking caps here. We found styrene in almost all of the fetal cord blood. Where did it come from? Because we've been putting our food in clamshells made of styrofoam, drinking out of styrene cups, putting hot water, hot food in styrene could release that chemical agent. And we have found it now in the fetal cord blood. So that is another driver. But then we get into the last triad of the drivers, blockages in the electrical flow. So guys like Dr. Stanley Nye are very good at understanding how the body is controlled by a very sophisticated energy flow called the meridian lines. And if we have any blockage in the meridian line, then it can sedate or choke off the energy and nutrient flow to that organ or gland system. This is called an interference field. And then we have the Vastu. The Vastu is understanding that the body is charged up by electricity. So you have cells in your body that are structure and function. Your structures, your organs, your glands, your bones, your fluid, your tissue. But your function is electricity. And if we can't charge the human body because there's something wrong with the charger or something wrong with the device that's going to be charged, thus our cells, then we have to fix that. That is called the Vastu. And finally, there's the emotions, the pneuma, the mind, the stress. And it controls the body. And the body is told what to do by the mind. So we have to have positive emotions of health if we're going to resolve it, because at the top of this pyramid, the emotions is number one. So if I can't change the habit of the patient, client, or customer sitting in front of me, and they have this thing that they need to pacify their body with sugar because if it's of addictive qualities, then I have to change that habit. And I have to find simple, elegant, and effective ways to do that if we're going to have control. And that's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to just making choices. It comes down to control. Not just the quantum physics and the biochemistry, but the biology and the science of the food. And you see, if you understand it as a whole, it's actually quite simple. Create a defensive posture that the Almighty created for you when you came out the chute. You had the highest level of HCl when you were born up to about 18 years old. Regain that defensive posture so the bugs can't get back in. You'll have a healthy pancreas. If you have a genetic expression, we can actually move genes. We can actually turn genes on or off at will. Actually, if you take the course with T. Colin Campbell at Cornell University, Whole Food Plant-Based Nutrition, they actually tell you about epigenetics and how you can have expression of the gene debt with the consumption of heterocyclic amylins from charred and highly heated cooked meats. So we have to understand that. I know that most people may not like it. I went and saw this great guy, Dr. Sabatini, and I listened to him, and he was saying he has no more than a handful of animal protein a day. So for somebody who's eating 3 servings of animal protein a day, I'm not going to try to shift this person and make this biohack for them of them going into a whole food plant-based diet overnight. I'm going to start to shift them down to just a palm size per day, and then move them to once or twice a week. And then eventually, for 21 days, I'll move them into a rainbow green diet with no sugar. And I will challenge them for 7 days. And all of a sudden, at the end of those 7 days, they're going to feel magnificent with more energy and more vigor. Then they're going to have the impetus and the energy and the willpower and the control to go for 21 days. And 21 days leads to 3 months. And my friends, that leads to a lifetime change. And when you make those changes, you'll never look at this disorder or this disease ever the same again.
And, as you're saying, everything's a process. Everything's transition. Everything's a process. So when someone is taking a look seriously at changing up some of their eating styles, looking at more raw, looking at more digestive, natural digestive enzymes and supplements, and let's say they are taking medications for diabetes right now that they've been taking for years, and even ones that are added on, but they don't want to be on them. They want to reduce them. So what you're saying is, with food being the medicine, and as we're rebuilding the hydrochloric acid, and as we're getting these nutrients in the system, that this is the solution. This can be the answer. This can be, along with emotions, but this can be the substitute, is the healthy lifestyle versus the prescribed medications.
Well, the first thing is if you are on a medical drug, before you decide to change anything, you have to have that conversation with your healthcare provider, your healthcare professional, or your medical doctor. You don't go and jump into something that you may not be aware of. I always invite people. I'll present to you the research. Read through the research, educate yourself, learn what's going on and how you got this in the first place, and then make the educated decision on how you want to claw back control. But don't try Herculean efforts unless you first talk to your doctor that I would like to try something new. And if you do that in a gradual way, you can be successful. When you jump into it without an understanding and you jump off your medications, I believe that is a mistake. And I'm not anti-medication, because sometimes it buys you time and gets you control so that you can get yourself into a position to be truly successful to resolve the condition the right way. So medications and surgery and drugs, they have their place.
Yes.
But it's meant to be for acute care as a crutch, so that you can buy time to get into a position where you can resolve the actual problem and get to the root of the root causes.
No, absolutely. And when we're looking at holistic, we are looking at the best of what tradition and natural has to offer. So it truly is an integrative approach and a preventive and proactive approach. Absolutely. And that's really great. Let me ask you a question about those people who may have type 1 diabetes, because I know we talked about some causes of this. Could be sheep's liver fluke, could be this, could be virus. And there's, a lot said out there about even it being related to a original, chickenpox virus or shingles virus, right? So do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know that, 90% of the population deals with insulin resistance and what would be pre-diabetes and or type 2 and 3 diabetes. But when it comes to type 1 diabetes, can you comment on what your thoughts are?
Yeah, I'm not going to say to you that the type 1 is resolvable. The issue becomes is that once you pull the plug on the drivers, then maybe you might find that those that are type 1 all of a sudden have the education and are able to resolve their problems as well. So we're not going to make the claim that we're going to solve type 1. The idea is when you're dealing with prevention, that's easy. When you're dealing with type 2, that's fairly common, and most good educated healthcare practitioners can help you to deal with that realm. Right. With type 1, the goal is education. The goal is to teach them, potentially, here's how you got into trouble. Here's the chain of events. Here's the calendar, if you will, of what happened to you and how you got to where you are now. Then once they become educated as to what the steps are, then they can take those steps backwards in reverse and perhaps then actually gain control. Again, with a good conversation with your doctor, your healthcare provider, in conjunction with good information and good research, then perhaps we can get a hold of some of that type 1 as well.
Well, I know that in my research and my experience, especially around type 1, and so often it's little children, sometimes it's babies, little children, and those that are younger. And, it's looking at, is it potentially, a virus that enters the system? And it always looks like it's precipitated by an overwhelming stressor at the time, or multiples of stress that are just too much stress for the body at the time.
Well, the adrenals and the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the thyroid, these guys are part of that endocrine system which controls the hormone cycles. And at the same time, when the body is under extreme fatigue and extreme stress, all the body systems, including the digestive system, which includes the pancreas and the gallbladder, liver, the intestine, colon, all of these issues, they're all going to be under stress at the same time. Anytime the body is under stress and you become nutritionally deficient, you can't get sick until you are first nutritionally deficient. During high stress times, you will be nutritionally deficient. Yeah. So you're setting the stage. Yeah. Now, virus, parasite, bacteria can get into the system if the conditions are right, and all of a sudden, you become the host. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the systems begin to crash. And left unchecked, it can certainly screw around with the machinery, and then you get yourself into a bigger problem. All these things are solvable. I believe that we have the tools today. We have the knowledge today. We've elucidated the Human Genome Project. We're looking at things like genetic SNPs. We're looking at being able to tinker with the gene deck. We know where the pieces are. Yeah. Today, I feel more like a blind squirrel wandering under the tree, and once in a while, I get a little acorn that drops on my head, and I get a little bit of an idea of what's going on. So we're getting our energy eyes. We're starting to see the problems. We're starting to get an understanding. But the biggest part of the puzzle is understanding the root of the root causes. And again, when we do our big events like the National Conference of Traditional Healing coming up this year at the end of April and early May, we are bringing in people from the whole food movement, like T. Colin Campbell, the Clements, Brian and Anna Maria from Hippocrates Institute. We're bringing in the people with the emotional healing modalities. We're bringing those people in. We're bringing people in from the fitness industry. We're bringing in the people from the World Organization of Natural Medicine, the holistic dentistry world. We're bringing in the nutritionists, the chiropractors. We're bringing everyone together so that the general public can come to an event like this and get a broad spectrum of good information. And then they have this roadmap, if you will, on how they can proceed, whether the issue is type 1 diabetes, type 2, whether they're having a problem with insulin, whatever the issue is. We can have a better idea of the root causes. But we have to work collectively to deliver a unified message so that the patient, client, or customer that's sitting in front of us doesn't become a lost soul in the woods. And that's what's happening today in the world. And you can see it because they're lined up at Dr. Horton's and Dr. Buck's every day getting their prescription. And that's going to be one of the problems.
Yes. And, you know, and this is so amazing. And this summit has such great information. And a lot of times I know with my clients over the years, I've seen where, and this is true with people with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, I see where they use meds to be able to eat whatever they want and think the medication is the solution to the issue at the time. So they might double up on a oral medication, or they might take more units of insulin, and that is so not it.
I think if I used digestive enzymes as an excuse to eat more cheese, I'm pretty sure the Almighty would revoke my humanitarian license. Okay? So things like cheese, for instance, these as aged, where you have 100% conversion of the lactose to galactose and glucose, this was meant to be used as a condiment. And when it comes to the sugars, things like what the Almighty created from the honeybee is an amazing superfood. Combined with pollen is an amazing superfood.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we have an abomination, an adulteration of this glucose into something that we have never seen before. And now we're having our kids walk around with these big giant fraps in their hands, with thousands of calories and gobs and gobs of sugar. The energy drinks running amok, being sold everywhere like candy. I mean, back in the old days, at least when I went to see the dentist and I left, he gave me a lollipop. And at least then I could understand that. But today, it's everywhere and it's everything. And you can't blame the food industry. The food industry has a fiduciary responsibility to its shareholders to sell their product. And they know they're going to sell more of their product if it has more sugar in it. So I'm not going to blame them. I'm not going to blame the cereal industry. I'm not going to blame the sugar industry. I'm certainly not going to blame the energy drink industry or the fast food industry. Who I am going to blame is us. Me, you, everyone. We are the ones who decide how our bodies are going to operate. Right. Is your body a church? Is it a temple? Or is your body a trash can?
Exactly.
And that's the decision that one of us has to decide. Just because something tastes good doesn't mean it's good for you. Right. Just because somebody says that this is something that you have to have for social status doesn't mean that you have to have that as well. We have to look within ourselves. We have to use information that's simple and elegant and was brought to us. That's why I always send people back to this article written in the 1930s by medical doctor Walter B. Guy on hydrochloric acid therapy. Give it a read. I'm telling you, it'll change your life. It's easy to find on the internet. And this is one of the readings and one of the teachings that's out there available for us, among other pieces of information with so many practitioners around the world have to share.
Definitely. So thank you so much for such amazing information and value. Because this, I hope everyone gets the article, and what we'll do is we'll put a link to the article for everyone so that it's easily available for them. But you're just a wealth of information and passion, and thank you so much for joining us. Is there any final thought? I mean, there's so many thoughts.
Yeah,
so is there one last thing you'd like to leave with our audience?
I'll leave you with this. It's the word causanity, and it's the amalgamation of two words. It's the amalgamation of the word of cause of insanity. Action, reaction, cause, and effect.
Yeah.
It's the only real truth we have left here on earth. And your only hope, your only escape is to understand it. To understand it is to understand why. Why is what separates us from them. It's why that separates me from my patients, clients, or customers. And my job has been to explain to people why, so they become empowered to take positive actions that have long-lasting effects to thus free themselves from cosanity. I leave you with this. Bright suns to you all. Have yourself a stress-free and healthy day. Don't you dare forget your final departure date can be delayed. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. And we are going to add your website here, Brian, so people can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. My website's B as in Bob, G as in good, angel.com. bgangel.com.
Thank you so much, Brian.